So, good evening, everybody. Today, again, we are here to discuss about this pandemic COVID-19. So, last time we had a discussion with Dr. Gulati. So, now today we have with us eminent physician and critical critical care expert from India as well as from abroad. So, today we have with us Dr. Shubhrojit Bhaumik from Kolkata, Dr. Divyansh Gulati from United Kingdom, Dr. Jaya Dabbarman from Haryana, Dr. Purnali Dhar Chaudhary from Washington, D.C., and myself, Dr. Jay Chakraborty from Agartala. So I welcome you all, sir and madam. So I would like to request you that our esteemed viewers like to know the recent updates of COVID-19. So how in India, of course, in abroad also, how we are managing the patient and what is the actual condition over here. So we will discuss everything. But of course, there is some time constraint. So we would like to uh, first of all, I would like to call Dr. Gulati from United Kingdom to approach his views. Can you hear, Dr.
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon, all of you. So I think we had discussed a couple of weeks ago regarding COVID-19,
Exactly.
about COVID-19 planning and how we're going to go ahead with it. Recently, there has been a trial published and a research published by the University of Oxford, which came up with the results regarding dexamethasone.
Yeah.
Use of dexamethasone, a potent steroid in COVID-19, and how beneficial is it? Is it the drug of choice? Is it the treatment? So there were a lot of news speculating around that what is this all about. So just to give a bit of information on that, this trial was called as a recovery trial, in which 11,500 patients around 175 NHS hospitals were recruited. Out of them, after case selection, 2,104 patients received dexamethasone and 4,320 patients did not receive dexamethasone, and they just received normal treatment for a viral infection.
So just a minute, can you just tell us what was the inclusion criteria for the patient?
So the inclusion criteria for any patient who was involved in the recovery trial were when they should be admitted in the hospital.
Okay. Which SOB, shortness of breath? Or
yes, so with COVID symptoms. So they were query COVID patients admitted to the hospital.
Okay.
And then they were divided into whether they were ventilated or not, whether they are in ICU or not, whether they are receiving oxygen or not, or whether they are just having ward-based care. So out of the 4,321 patients who did not receive the drug, the results were the 28-day mortality was 41%. Patients just receiving oxygen, the mortality was 25%. And somebody with just receiving usual care was 14%.
Okay.
Now, when we tried to sum up the results of the trial, the results were dexamethasone reduced the death by 1/3 in patients who were ventilated, by 1/5 in patients who received oxygen, and it showed no benefits in patients who did not require any respiratory care.
Okay. So this is significant.
Yes. So it is significant specifically in people who are either ventilated or who require a bit of oxygen. But it's again, because as the news was speculating around that now there is a wonder drug which is going to treat COVID, this is not that drug. It is a supportive drug to treat seriously ill patients. It is not a treatment of somebody who has query COVID, normal fever, but not short of breath, because steroids have their own side effects. So that is very important when we are spreading the news amongst normal common man, that dexamethasone is a drug which is used only for sick patients who are on ventilator or who require oxygen. Then only you give dexamethasone.
So in some patients, you use this remdesivir also along with the dexa?
So remdesivir is still a part of trial, but we haven't got any positive results out of it. So any immunosuppressants, I think I spoke about it the last time as well. Hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir, immunosuppression, we do not have any positive results, which we can say that, yes, this was a big trial and we have good results. I think the only good results which we have got is from dexamethasone at the moment.
Thank you. So now I would like to come to Dr. Subhrajyoti. So Dr. Bhaumik, can you tell us what is the actual scenario in West Bengal, rather in Kolkata? You are working in Kolkata only. So how you are managing the patient, like patient with SOB and patient without SOB? So how you are managing?
So thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Chakraborty. Let me begin with the disclaimer that I am not a critical care physician. I am a physician I'm the head of research at Peerless Hospital, Calcutta, and I'm also I'm part of the task force in the hospital. So I'm going to talk about how Peerless is managing these patients. I would say that there has been a lot of change in the government advisory in India. That is one thing which I want to highlight to your audiences, that we are changing our advisories on a regular basis. So right now, the few important things which the state of West Bengal has implemented, of course, with the guidance from the central government, is that OPD testing of COVID-19 has started. So in Peerless Hospital in Calcutta, COVID-19 OPD testing has started, which was not allowed 2 weeks back. That is something which is very remarkable according to me, because we are one of the testing centers in the state, and we have got both RT-PCR facility as well as Gene Expert facility. So the Gene Expert gives us the turnaround time of at least a couple of hours, and the results are out. Whereas RT-PCR on average is giving us 5 to 6 hours turnaround time. So I think the biggest boost in the change of the guideline which has happened is rapid detection of the patients who are coming to the fever clinic in the OPD. Initially, they had to wait; their samples have to be drawn the next day, and they all had to be admitted as per the government guidelines. So I think a lot has changed in the last 10 days. The other thing which is very remarkable, I would say, is that domiciliary care is now being allowed by the government of West Bengal. So this is something which is very remarkable, because I think the United Kingdom and the United States were already doing it. This was not found. The Indian government did not allow it. But as our numbers continue to climb during the unlock period, I think this is another very great important thing. So what currently we have 40 beds which are dedicated to COVID. We are planning to increase some bit more, but domiciliary care is the road ahead. So patients who desperately require, or I would say clinically require, some kind of oxygen support or ventilation they are being encouraged to get admitted, and we are trying to keep the other patients at home, of course under constant supervision of our physician. So that is something which is important. The other thing which I want to highlight is that yesterday only in India, Favipiravir had got emergency approval from the Drug Controller General. So Favipiravir is I won't say it's a wonder drug, but definitely it's an antiviral drug which is still under trials, but it's already approved in Japan and has got antiviral activities against influenza virus. So we spoke to the company. Glenmark is it's the first oral drug which has been approved for COVID-19 in this country, and I would say for emergency use only. So we inquired with the company today, and they said from Tuesday it will be available in the city of Calcutta. So That's the few things which we are trying to bring in. Testing is definitely increasing. We have ramped up the testing. We have also ramped up, I would say, the domiciliary care, which is another very important thing which was not happening before.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bhaumik. So now I would like to request Dr. Dabbarman to express your view around this Haryana, Delhi, and all these sites. So how you are managing people? Because Delhi is now in hot seat since last 1 week.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So good afternoon, doctors, and good afternoon, everyone. I think you can hear me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you can hear me. So now in Haryana, or you can say Delhi NCR, I mean, we are using, like, there are categories of the patients that we are categorizing with mild, moderate, and severe everywhere, like everywhere. So for mild cases, we are not recommending hospital admission, because you know, the less bed and there is no much space for all the patients. The cases are increasing so much.
Excellent.
So in moderate cases, we depends on the symptoms. We are advising for admission. After that admission, we are supportive treatment. We are applying supportive treatment, including symptomatic, associated with other symptoms, like patients are coming with even different types of symptoms nowadays, including diarrhea also. So if there is upper respiratory and lower respiratory tract infection, we are recommending along with antibiotics and some other supportive treatments that we do for fever and other viral infection.
Are you
Along with
using
that, if there is
are you
even,
using hydroxychloroquine routinely?
yeah, I'm coming on that.
Okay.
Along with that, we start with hydroxychloroquine for patients with moderate symptoms. We give 400 mg twice a day for 1 day. After that, 200 mg twice a day for next 4 days. That is given along with azithromycin if there is a monitor and all, because we know with azithromycin, hydroxychloroquine, it causes QT prolongation in ECG. So it will be a risk always, and we have to be very careful on using both the drugs together. Along with that, we are using nowadays, we have not used remdesivir till now. We have used uh, just now we are using tocilizumab. It is a very costly drug though, but everywhere we are getting those informations from other part of countries also, that tocilizumab is giving really good result. So we give twice, like 1 day, the first day we give this tocilizumab 400 mg. After that, the next day we are giving again IV shot of tocilizumab. So there are 2 doses within 24 hours of gap. Along with that, we have to see the imagings and the clinical part of the patient. If there is pneumonia, we have to take care of that, and we know that it can lead to ARDS and other respiratory emergencies. So in ward and in ICU, the things really changes in different ways. So we know in wards we have stable patients, so we are safe there. But in ICU, when the patient is having infiltrates in chest, if we get the pneumonia and patches and all, breathlessness, less than 90% of oxygen saturation. So we have to be careful, and we are monitoring the patients 24/7 continuously. With that, antibiotics, supportive treatments, and other thing that in some patients we have really seen with tocilizumab, we are getting really good results. So I don't know if in UK or US you people are using it or not. We are really little bit skeptical about using dexamethasone, because if there is other bacterial infection, it may increase the severity of the disease. So we are being little skeptical on using that till now.
So you are not
I would
planning,
like to know.
you are not planning to use dexamethasone in
We do
recent
use,
future?
if there is severe respiratory distress with other microbial infection. Of course, we do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to know about the situation in UK and US, if they are using tocilizumab or not. I would like to know that.
Okay. Definitely we'll talk about it. So
Yeah.
now I would like to request Dr. Pawnali. So you please tell us something about your country and definitely about something about vaccine, because every day in national paper and media also this vaccine is coming within 3 months or coming within 6 months. So all are very confused. So if you can just insight us something.
Sure. Thank you so much, and really appreciate this panel with the doctors in India and UK. Let me clear that I am an epidemiologist, so all the doctors talked about all the therapeutics. So I'm not in a position to talk about the therapeutics, but obviously vaccine is a very related question. And yes, as you rightfully indicated that every day we are listening that it's coming 3 months, 6 months when we are getting that. So first, the point is that vaccines is not, especially the mRNA vaccine, that is going to be probably the speediest, the fastest vaccine so far based on the technological platform. It will be, so still it's not going to come before 18 to 24 months. And the background research says from the NIAID in US, Dr. Anthony Fauci said at least 18 months. And on that note, let me tell you that there are a couple of candidates, according to WHO list, who are for frontier, but all are in that preclinical stage. No one has gone to the clinical stage. And if I may add, like in vaccine development, there are technological background where candidates develop the vaccines. Then there is a preclinical phase and the clinical phase. Clinical phase also has human trial, which of course Moderna, and I will go to that. Some people did the trial back in March. There is also efficacy stage, then evaluation stage in the clinical phase. And after that, the license happened. And after the license happened, there is also some logistical problems and challenges where comes the manufacturing speed, cost, and all other things, like how do you deploy the vaccine. So there are many facets to discuss about in the vaccine phase. So right now, if you, on this note, like I would like to say, like what are the candidates? So in WHO, there are 115 to 120 candidates who were actually got the funding. And that's a different story of the financing and all those. I'm not going there. There are IFFI, International Finance Facility for the Immunogenesis or something. So among them, like out of 120, like right now I want to name of 5 or 6. So basically who are the frontier. So one is Moderna from USA, who did the mRNA vaccine. Actually the genome we got the genome sequence on January 11, if I'm not wrong, 2020. So the genome sequence was not very different than SARS or MERS, but there are some distinct. So that's why, and the mutation is high in the vaccine, mRNA vaccine, because it's an RNA vaccine. So that's why people are constantly struggling, like how to encode that. So Moderna has done one mRNA vaccine. They are still in the preclinical phase. The another one, which is very good, is the CanSino vaccine, like the biotech company in China. There is also Sinovac from China, Biotechnology Institute. Another good one in UK from Oxford University. They did the demographic trial kind of vaccine where they took the children less than 12 years and also the elderly population whose age are kind of greater than 56 years. So they tried to see the vulnerable groups and they are quite successful. The other one is like Queensland University in Australia, who did the subunit vaccine. So I didn't go into more details about what types of vaccines, like there are DNA RNA vaccines, subunit vaccines, then also like virus vector vaccine, peptide vaccine. So I'm not going in details, but just trying to say that the safest is recombinant subunit vaccine and the fastest is mRNA. So as I said, like USA, UK, Australia, China, those are the 4 frontiers. And in the last, like Germany, the Pfizer said like BNT162 is coming in the October. I heard that someone did bet, but not sure. So
Sanofi
these are
also
the
trying, no? Sanofi is also trying.
Sanofi is also trying. There are lots of like the Gilred and all those. So I just mentioned 5 names who are basically did some preclinical trials and they are claiming that they can make it end of this year or next year earlier. So that's why I said 5 names. There may be some other people can say other names, but these are the things that are coming again and again in the journal articles. Here, NJEM, as well as Science paper, also mention these people's name. So that's why I mentioned these 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
So one thing I would like to ask Dr. Subhrajyoti. So yesterday only I was going through one IAP, Indian Academy of Physician webinar, that they are telling that after 11 days, the chances of getting infection from COVID infected patient is very less. So those who are in quarantine, so they can be released after 11 days. They are telling like that. So I'm not sure about it, but I would like to know what is your opinion about it. Because if we can just vacate after 11, 12 days, then we can just accommodate more patients over there.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I have not seen the IAP guideline, but I would like to highlight that the current Indian guideline, the Ministry of Health Family Welfare guideline, which has come yesterday again, it's a revised guideline which says that, yes, for healthcare workers, especially for healthcare workers, the testing guideline which has come, which says that, it depends on the kind of exposure these healthcare workers are having. So we have to really define if it is a high risk exposure and a low risk exposure. So government has really defined that. So anybody, any person who's having an exposure with a positive person within 1 meter for more than 15 minutes without a goggles and a face shield and a mask is a high risk exposure. And these people should be asked to go for a quarantine of 7 days, and they must be tested after 7 days because the viral load increases maximally after 7 days. And they want to keep the testing somewhere between 7 to 10 days. And I think from there it's where the concept of having people let go after 11 days. If you look at the discharge criteria by the government of India currently, it mentions that, in mild to moderate cases, the patients should be admitted, the patients who are admitted should be observed for 10 days. And then if they don't have fever for 3 consecutive days, you can let them go. So I think the thing is that we have to really select a timing where the viral load is maximum, and also depending on the exposure. If I'm wearing a mask, if I've got exposed to a person who's got positive, but he was wearing a mask, I was wearing a mask, and I was with that person for less than 15 minutes, that doesn't make me a high risk exposure person. So I need not be so panicky. I need not also try and go out for a quarantine, which majority of the healthcare workers were going in. So the take-home message would be that yes, select the right time for doing your viral load when your viral load is high, which will be somewhere between 7 to 10 days. If you are not sure, quarantine yourself for 7 days after an exposure and then go for testing.
So we are running short of time. So my last question will be to Dr. Jaya Devarman.
Yeah, please.
Madam, you told me that you are using hydroxychloroquine from the very beginning only. So since in last 3 months, did you get any side effect from this? Because
till now, fortunately, I didn't get any patient who said any kind of severe side effect. Some people, of course, complain a little bit of headache, little bit of nausea. Other than that, gastritis, of course, also. So other than that, I haven't got any patient till now that who has complained me about that. That was the thing. Yeah. Otherwise, with tocilizumab, we have not got yet any side effect also. So we are on trial with these 2 drugs.
Actually, last time also we were talking with Dr. Gulati that mainly due to this side effect only in UK they are not at all using hydroxychloroquine. But in our country, I think it is doing good. So we can.
Dr. Chakraborty, if I could chip in with what Dr. Trehan is saying. So, if you really look at hydroxychloroquine, I think the concept of the adverse event is too far-flung, because this drug has been used in rheumatoid arthritis it is used for a prolonged period of time. The dosing
very common. Very commonly it is used.
It is very commonly used in rheumatoid arthritis, in systemic
Right.
lupus erythematosus, and they receive
Yes.
it for years together. And
Right.
the commonest side effect which is reported is usually the GI intolerance and the other, and the retinopathy and all are long-term effects, which of
Yes.
course requires a lot of observation. So hydroxychloroquine, the dose which the government has said, yes, now we can debate on whether that should be done or not done. That's preclinical data which has gone directly. But there is a large study, 10,000 healthcare worker study currently undergoing in New Delhi, which on the prophylaxis use of hydroxychloroquine. So government has India is
Absolutely.
the only
Absolutely.
country.
Maximum
India
of
is
my
the only
colleagues are
country
taking. Actually,
are
maximum
taking.
of my colleagues are also taking.
So I think there
as
is
well.
definitely, I think the scare that hydroxychloroquine causing a lot of adverse events is probably not, I will say, not a very big issue unless and until, as a doctor mentioned, that if it is given with azithromycin, because both prolong the
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
yeah. So we have safety data, but yes, the problem in India is that, documentation. Indian patients probably might have consumed more of hydroxychloroquine than entire combination of the world patients, I would say. But we have not documented that data. That is our weakness.
The
But
thing
we are
is,
trying to document.
any of the
Yeah.
drugs, what we are trying to use for COVID, it's all on trial, So it should be always under cover of medical supervision. No drug should be used, over the counter. It should be banned.
Absolutely. And I think the very important role of medical supervision and counseling is there, and also informed consent, because this is every drug which we have to use, we have to take informed consent from the patient. That's what is being currently practiced in this country. So
Thank you, everybody. So we have passed our time.
Last note, I just want to add that hydroxychloroquine got banned by FDA last week. So that's a different issue that, as he said, like we can discuss on that. But yeah, I would like to thank that there should be a documentation from Indian perspective so that we can show more data and that's access rate from clinicians.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. All on trial. All on trial.
This is to Dr. Parnali. As hydroxychloroquine got banned, so has NEGM and Lancet retracted papers against hydroxychloroquine.
Yes.
So that is highly debatable.
Yeah.
Evidence-based medicine is really, these two papers are retracted from such high impact factor journals. So we really have to look at, just because this is hydroxychloroquine coming from an Indian perspective or a developing country is trying to promote it. So there are many other factors.
Many other geopolitical factors are going on.
Absolutely. So
Absolutely.
I think this will be beyond the discussion of what we are discussing.
Okay, Doctor. Next time definitely we'll again discuss, because this is a big chapter, big issue. So this experiences counts. So thank you so much once again for sharing your views and experiences with us. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.